Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Manisha Gupta and I am Assistant Professor at Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology, Greater Noida. Now, we are going to resume our session on the subject of business research method. In the last session, we have discussed about what is qualitative research approach and what is quantitative research approach. And in today's session, we are going to discuss about your qualitative techniques of the data collection. And in this, we are going to study about the projective technique, depth interview technique, experience survey and your focused group, and last is your observation method. So, let us start with the projective technique. So, the projective technique are your indirect and unstructured method of the investigation in which you have developed by the, it is basically developed by the psychologist and use the projection of the respondent for inferring about underlying motives or the urge or the intention which cannot be secured through the direct question. Means this method is applied when the people are not willing to answer directly. For them, they use projective technique. So, projective technique is useful to give the respondent an opportunity so that they can express their attitude without any personal embarrassment. And these techniques helps the respondent to project his own attitude and the feeling unconsciously on the matter under the study. Means they can judge, interpret it, the attitude and the feeling of responded by these technique which the respondent is not willing to express it. The projective technique is important role in the your motivational research or in your attitude surveys. So, it is like when the people are not like to respond it, then you give them certain word and they give, you ask them what will come first in your mind when you see this picture, or what will come in your mind, what the first thing come in your mind when you will give them certain word, so that because of their responses you can analyze their attitude, perception and behavior which the people are not ready or consciously does not expressed. There are certain methods under your projective technique. So, first method is your word association test. There are basically 4 methods and this is the first method in your projective technique, which is word association text. In this, an individual will give a clue or hint and ask them to respond to the first thing comes in a mind. Like you give them certain hints, you give them certain words or clue, like you show them the certain pictures or you just give them any song or any name and ask them what first thing comes into their mind. And the association can take the shape, the picture or word. You can associate or they give them in the shape of the picture or just in a words. Then they may be, there can be many interpretation of the same thing and you just list the word is given and you don't know the which word they are more interested. And in this technique, the interviewer record the response which reveal their inner feeling of the respondent and the frequency which any word is coming repeatedly when the same point or the word is coming, then they are going to record it. Like there is some study conducted on the 50 respondent where they gave the word complexion, and by the complexion most of the people have responded the word out of 50, 12 people say 20, which give the general response that when we talk about the complexion, they think about the skin tone and they like to be, they have fair skin tone. So, this is the kind of example in your projective technique. You openly does not admit that you like the fair people, but by this method they have interpreted what the general people are thinking. Then what are the other projective technique? First is your completion test. In this test you asked to complete the incomplete sentenced or story. You gave them certain sentenced or gave them half the story and asked them to complete the story or the sentence. in this way, when they complete the sentence, they will be able to reflect their attitude and state of mind. Like if you give them the glass of the water, and for the glass of water is merely filled between the half. Some people may say it is a half filled, some people may say it is half empty. That shows their attitude, their state of the mind. Then the construction test. The construction test is somewhat similar to your competitive test, but in this you can give you the picture and you can ask them to write a story about it. In the completion test you have given the many information, but in the construction test you give the less information. You just give them picture and ask them to write a story about it. The initial structure is limited and not detailed like your completion test, and it's just an example that you give them 2 cartoons and give them 1 dialogue along with it, and you ask them to write a story about it. So when the people write a story, that will depict their attitude, their state of mind, and what type of the thinking or state of mind they are in. The next is your expression techniques. The expression technique, you ask the people to express the feeling or attitude of other people, means you ask them to interpret how the other has feel, or ask them to express what is the attitude of the others. So in this technique you will get to know the how they perceive others, means when they interpret or express that the how this other person will react in that situation. It means you will get the state of the mind where what the one person is thinking about the other. Then what are the disadvantage of your projective technique? The biggest disadvantage is that it need highly trained interviewer and the skilled interpreter are needed to understand what the respondent are thinking. Then interpreter may be biased if they associate himself with them, then what how they have interpreted, that will depend upon the thinking of your researcher. So there is a chances that interpreter may be biased, and when they are biased, then the result is not very correct. Then it is a very costly and time taking methods. And the other problem with this is research is the respondent which you have selected, that may not represent the entire population. So these were the disadvantage. Now what is a depth interview? The depth interviews are generally used the small sample, because in this you are going to interview one by one many people, so the sample size will be small, and also conduct the direct one-to-one personal interview. In this you have directly interacted one-to-one, and a detailed background is provided by the respondent and elaborate the data concerning the respondent opinion, their values, their motivation, their expressions, feelings were obtained, and even their non-verbal expression is also observed, that what will be their facial expression, what will be their body movement, at what point of the time they make the eye contact, what point of the time they do not like to see or do not like to make the eye contact, and it takes long timetable and the lengthy observation were involved in this method, and it is conducted to customize the individual response. And in this type of the research, the interviewer made the rapport with the respondent, they make the personal contact with them, and in this method the question will be depend upon what kind of the answer will be given. Initially we give the question and expect the answer, but in this method we make the question according to the what will the answer. And even the interview climate, means where they have conducting the interview, like if we are conducting the interview in a restaurant, in an office space, and whatever the physical setting were there, that is also impacted. And the successful of the interview will depend upon the rapport of the interviewer established with the respondent. If the respondent is willing to open it, then the interviewer will get the direct answer and he may be able to respond it properly. Then what is the disadvantage and advantage of this method? So your advantage is that lot of data is provided when you make the contact with the respondent. If they are willing to open it, they will give the number of the information to you, and that information will be raw and correct, and information obtained are comparatively more accurate. Next is personal or intimate topic can also you can discuss with your respondent, because you had made the great rapport with your respondent, and respondent will give their intimate or personal information to you. Then what is the disadvantage of the Delphi interview technique? That it is difficult to generalize, since the interviewer were not standardized, because in the depth interview the interviewer's questions and their attitude change with the respondent. So for all respondent you cannot ask the questions in the same manner or the same set of the question or in the same language. Because of that you will not get the any generalized or the standard answer in it, since the success depend on the interviewer and the chance of the biasness. And again in this method it is highly depend upon the interviewer or researcher. If they are not biased, if they are qualified, if they are knowledge, then it is good. But if the interviewer lack in any of these terms, then your research may be disturbed or affected by this. Then last drawback is the data analysis takes lots of time in this study, because your response in not in a numbers, it will be in a text or pictures. Now the next and most widely used your qualitative technique is your focused group interview, or it is a kind of your interview or group discussion. Focus group is also known as your group interview or a group discussion. The focus group interview is basically the unstructured and free flowing interview with the small group of people. In this method you collect the small group of people, you gave them a certain topic and you asked them to discuss with each other, and the moderator were also there. The moderator is a person who handle this group discussion, who coordinate it, who give the topic and manage that discussion, and that person also record those responses. So moderator can motivate the people to interact, and moderator can also record the response in their verbal content, and he can also record the respondent of the people who was not actually speaking, but their facial expression or body movement are saying a lot. So moderator also record those response also in this method, and it is not a very rigid and constructed method, because you can say it is free flowing. You gave the topic and everyone is giving their own views on it. That is why it is not a rigid, and it is a flexible format that encourage the discussion, and they use to understand. Basically the study is conducted to understand the attitude and the behavior of the audience, and in this you will select only small group, which may be maximum 6 or 12 people's groups will be allotted. Focus group interview will not be deal with the large group, it always deal with the small group. You give the topic to the small group, and there may be you may allot 1 or 2 moderator of it who lead the discussion and select a responses, and that is the person who introduced the topic. What is the objective behind the focused group? The primary objective is to gather primary information of the research project. This type of the study is done in the initial stage of any research, like it is a kind of the pilot study also for the research. It helps to develop your questionnaires and the terms of the survey research. It also helps you to understand the reason behind any particular phenomena, means how the general people are behaving in that particular way or in that particular phenomena. So it also helps you to interpret certain phenomena, means why it is happening. Then it is to test primary the idea or plan, like your preliminary study or pilot study. By doing this, you will get to know or understand that what the general population may think. Then what are the steps involved in it? First of all, you just define the problem, means your management problem. According to that, you select the sample, means the people who are going to be affected, you select the small sample from it. Then you determine the number of the groups necessary, means how many focus group interviews you want to do, how many groups you want to do. You want to do with the one group, 2, 3, 4, whatever they required according to your topic and length and breadth of your problem. After that, you prepare the study mechanics and arrange where the focus group is going to meet, assemble and going to discuss. Then you select the moderator and brief them about the topic. After that, you prepare the focused group material, means content or topic, what are the other settings are required, you prepare it. Then you conduct the session, and after conducting the session, you analyze the data and prepare a summary report about that focus group interview. What are the benefit of this study? It is used basically to collect primary information, and therefore it can conduct the pilot study. By doing the pilot study, initially when the researcher carried out the large research, they basically do the pilot study to understand that is we are working in the right direction or not, or we are lacking anywhere, what is the problem may come to the people when they will conduct the research in the large platform. So, for that they conduct the pilot study. Then it is also help to understand the what will the relative cost is not much, because its costs are not much, you can get to understand what will the actual cost is going to incur on your project, and this will be conducted quickly. You easily select the sample, conduct a research, and by conducting the research you will understand that. And it is also the very flexible. We have seen that in the properties of the focus group that it is not very rigid structure, it is a kind of very free flowing structure. And here the moderator can detect the opinion, and the certificates to those who cannot speak, means they can also record the opinion and the behavior of the people who is not speaking by your moderator, and you can get the questionnaire at the end of your discussion to get to know more about your study. Then what is the disadvantage of this technique? The disadvantage of your focus group is it is an inappropriate for gathering the quantitative data, means if you are want to have the data in terms of the number, then this type of the technique is not appropriate. Then if there is a self appointment group leader was there, then they can impose their opinions on others, and also the moderators can also impose their opinion on a group. That is the disadvantage. What are the other disadvantage? It is basically heavily depend upon the skill of the moderator. If it is skilled, then it is good, and if that person is not skilled, then your research will be not effective. Then respondent in the focus group may or may not represent the population from which they are drawn, although they are drawn from the population from which they are going to conduct a study, but they may not be the ideal representative of that population. Then recording equipments are likely to restrict the respondents, and location of the recording equipments is also very important in this type of technique. Then we talk about the experience survey. So, what is the experience survey? Basically, in the other study we have collected the data from the respondent. In the experience survey, we conduct the interview and to the person who has the experience in that particular field. So, if you collecting the information or data from the experienced person, then it is a profit by seeking information from personal experience, like from personal experience in the area of the study, and you can tap their collective memories and experience. You will get the information about their memories and their experience. You will get benefited from them. And when the interview person is an experience in the service experience survey, when we interview a person in experience survey, we should seek their idea about the important issue. Like we may not get the important issue, or we may miss out the certain issue, then they can give the important issues and give the important aspects of the subject and discover what is important across the subject range of the knowledge, which is important, what is not important, because they are experienced, they already work in that field. So you will get the information and you will benefit from their experience. And the investigative format is used and should be flexible enough, and it can be vary from avenue, means from source to source, and emerge during the interview, means they can change the question at the time of the interview on the basis of their response. Then in this, what of the question you can be asked, means what has been done, what you have done, what you have tried in past and you did not get success, then what you get when you are succeeded, then what things have changed from past to present. Then you can also ask the change producing element of the situation, that why the situation is changing, what are the element of it, then who is involved in the decision and what role does each person play. You will get by this that what is the importance of the people in the research, how they are important and what role they can play in it, what is the problem area, what is the barrier in the study, then what will the cost and the process under the study, and whom can count or assist or participate in a research, and what will the most important or priority areas on these study. So these type of the question you can ask. And what are the people you can involve in it? You can involve the newcomers also, because they don't have a prior experience, so they can open up their own experience, they give their own feedback. Then the people who have the marginal or the peripheral information, means they are not properly involved but they are marginally involved in it. Then the individual in the transition who is in way or area to gain more information or in a transition from one position to other, and those who fit well and those who doesn't, means who is properly fit in the situation and who is not fit in that situation, and also those who represent the different position in the system. Then last is your observation method. In the observation method is basically you see the people in a natural setting. There are two methods in the observation method. In one method you get involved with the respondent and see that how they are reacting, and in the other method you just be the outside of the natural environment and you just observe that what the people are doing. In the observation method, the human and mechanical observation is involved, and it is for what the people actually do and what event takes place during the buying or the consumption situation, and the information is collected by observing process. It is basically the observing process, and it is going to happen in your natural setting. You are going to record that how the people react in natural environment and what type of the situation are. There are the few situation like your service station, and in the service station you will see that how the people are reacting, or you can just display in the certain shops or the supermarket that where the people look best, or what will the attracting point where they have see the first when they enter into market. So these type of the thing will be observed and they can do. What is the advantage of this research? The researcher absorb the recorded event, and it is not rely on the willingness or the ability of the report is accurate. Basically, if the researcher observe and record the event, it is not necessary on rely to willingness and ability of the respondent, means they don't know that the other are respondent, so they can react correctly. Then biasing effect of the interview was somewhat eliminated in this method, because you are just recording what the other has doing. And what are the disadvantage of this method is basically it is used, and if the people is not, because it depend upon the observers, and if the observers is not able to record the things, and in this situation you are not able to record the attitude, motivation of the customer and the state of mind or buying mood. You just see the reaction of it, but you did not know the reason of that reaction. And it can also take time for investigation and to wait for the participation to react. You have to wait how the people are going to react. And the personal and immediate activity such as watching television late at a night and even more easily discussed with the questionnaire rather than observation method. And finally, the cost is the final disadvantage, because in this method it is going to take lots of time and cost. So, thank you everyone. This is all for the day.